Hello and welcome to Lost in Brazil. Today I'm going to drive from Macaé to Campos Goytacazes or something like that. I'm always pronouncing that word wrong, but it's Goytacazes. I think Goytacazes. So it's spelled Goytacazes. Look it up on the internet. You can see more about it. So some of these things are very interesting that you're going to see along the way. But one thing to remember is that this is just a rural area. Well, not just a rural, but it is a rural area. Very beautiful area. And I'm going to talk a little bit about it. But I'm leaving the city of Macaé right now, and it's going into this one place called Cabiunas, and there's nothing significant about that area except there's a Petrobras area here, so there's a lot of petroleum production going on around this area. A lot of natural gas. There's a natural gas pipeline, I believe, that goes up through here. I know there is a pipeline, and there could be both natural gas and petroleum that's being pumped from offshore into this area. But while all this movement for getting rid of natural gas in the U.S. was going on, they were like trying to bump this up down here, get this industry going. You kind of wonder what's going on with all this U.S. aid and everything. A lot of it is, to me, it seems like it's being used to diminish the U.S., to put it down, put it away. So let me turn down this music a little bit, and I think it's a little bit loud here. It seems like it's trying to get it down earlier. So to the left, there's a place where they have sugarcane. I got a video at that place right there where they make sugarcane juice, which is pretty good. It's probably not as bad as like using processed sugar or anything. I know it's not good to use too much sugar and stuff, but it's also, it seems like there are, it's not so bad. It doesn't like shock your system. Maybe a little bit, but it does give you some quick energy. So into the left, there's a petroleum facility there. You can always see a flame there up in the sky, like everywhere you go, especially at night, because of the production that goes on there. And so on this route right here, nice quiet route, heading towards the destination here is called Santa Maria Madalena. So Santa Maria Madalena. It's a rural place kind of in the middle of nowhere. It's really nice. You go there, the streets are nice, everything's clean, no homeless people, which you don't really see a lot around this region either. I think most of the homeless people are in the big cities and things like that. Like where I'm at, you might see a few in downtown Macaé, but they're not. Most of the people are not really homeless. They're more like people kind of working in the streets. Usually, there's not really a homeless problem, at least around this area, because people are able to move into certain areas and buy property here and there at dirt cheap prices. Not recommended places to live, but people sort of get by, it seems like. While there are some drug addicts and people like that does happen, you don't see it that much. And of course, I don't know why, so I can't really explain the ins and outs of that. But I think some of it could be contributed to the abundance of space and food in this area, and also too, anybody can work. The pay might not be too good, but people are going to work. No one's going to go hungry around here because there are fruit trees everywhere and plenty of food. A lot of the restaurants give food to people in need. There's this one restaurant I go to, and like most of the restaurants here, it's sort of a strange thing, but people eat like a full meal for lunch, and then they snack in the afternoon. So that's one of the big differences in Brazil. So if you want to go out to eat, you need to, and you want to eat good, unless it's going to be like in the tourist area or the main beach area. If you want to go to a restaurant, most of the restaurants close at 3 o'clock, and I mean they're just completely shut down. So, but there's a restaurant that I go to sometimes. I haven't been there in a while, but food is pretty good there. It's churrasco, which is where they have it's barbecue basically, Brazilian barbecue, and they carve it off into your plate. And at 3 o'clock, if you eat the place late, when you're walking out there at 3 o'clock, I think at 3:30, they feed the leftovers to the homeless. So you have some of that going on, and that is the most popular restaurant. The food is good, so I think there's something, some good karma going on there anyway. And so there's not much to see on this route, just beautiful scenery of the rural area, and it is a nice, it's a relaxing trip and so forth. But as we're leaving Macaé, some things to mention about the city is sort of the capital of petroleum in Brazil. So there's a lot of petroleum being produced here, and it is, it's people come here to work in the petroleum industry. It's not a big city like Houston or anything, but the majority of the population here are not from here. And a lot of Americans down here, a lot of British, a lot of Americans, Canadians, other people that were working down here and decided to stay. So it's a nice area. Now, but as far as the town's concerned, it's kind of got a nice beach area, and it has some good restaurants, and it's pretty good. But the beach is not that great. It's not a great place for swimming or anything. It does get crowded, but all the beaches get crowded down here. And most people, if you want to go to a nice beach, you're going to travel elsewhere. But the beach is nice, the boardwalk is nice, and it's in good condition. It's not shabby. The restaurants are nice. There's plenty of them on the beach area. But those will stay open all night. But if you want to go to another restaurant in another part of town, they usually close at 3 o'clock. No ands, if or buts. And unlike the U.S., the gas stations here actually have good food. I was surprised. I remember we were traveling, the first time I was in Brazil, I was traveling from Sao Paulo to Santos, and we stopped at a gas station, and I kind of thought, why would we do this? Because, like in the U.S., you go to a gas station and you buy a hamburger or sausage or something there, and you forget about it and leave it, leave it, what piece falls under your seat or something. You could probably find it 10 years later and it's in the same condition. I mean, it's every time I've eaten from an American gas station, it tears up my stomach. So, of course, those were my younger days. So you do a lot of dumb things when you're younger. But of course, as much convenience is not worth it if you're going to kill yourself with food that's pumped full of chemicals in order to preserve it. So you go to a gas station here It's you know, a lot of places are going to be barbecued or natural food. It's some of them are pretty good. Some of them people go to the gas station just to eat, not just for gas. So it has its benefits. Now we're getting on one of the main highways. Now I'm not sure how far this highway goes, but the direction we're heading right now, it goes to Campos de Goytacazes, something like that. And there it's so Campo means field, so it means like field of Goytacazes. And you know, sorry for butchering that up, but it's a place, you know, it's the tribe of Indians, the people that were there, and it was one of the most prosperous cities in Brazil. A lot of things came out of there. There's a port nearby where a lot of iron came out of there. You know, of course, Brazil is known for its high quality iron, but a lot of food was exported out of there too. If you going through this area, this region around here has the highest population of cattle per capita in the state of Rio de Janeiro. So there's a lot of cattle here, and you might not see it that much on this. On some of my other videos, you'll see a lot of cattle, but this one, not so much. Now they do have speed limits in Brazil, but most people don't. It's basically like the Autobahn. Here you can kind of go as fast as you want, as long as there's no radar in there. And when there is a radar, they will put up a notification that there is a radar here. Now, the only thing, you know, you could get a ticket for driving without your headlights on, but I've never heard of it. And the cops usually don't pull people over. They never do, really. I saw a guy break the law right in front of the police one day. There was a traffic light. The light was red, and there was also a sign on that said no left turn. Some guy does, and it's in one of my videos. I believe the light was red, but anyway, there's a no left turn sign, and some guy pulls up and he does a left turn in front of a police car that's waiting for the light to turn green, and nothing happened. So people are just completely aware of it. Maybe if there's something like really, I saw a guy get pulled over once, and he was probably doing something very unsafe, or maybe he was a criminal running from the cops. I'm not sure. But that's about it. So they don't mess with you, but they do have these radars here and there. But one of the things, like in the law, they have to post a sign that there's a radar ahead, and if you get a ticket, you could fight it in court if there's no sign. So, and it's good to have dash cam video just in case. But it does keep you a little bit alert. Though I think it's safer to not, because when I lived in Germany, you didn't have to worry about anything. You just drive and you could focus on your driving, and that was it. And so I personally don't believe in speeding tickets, and you have to watch out for motorcycles in Brazil. They just kind of come out of anywhere. Now this is the off ramp. We're going to a town called Conceição de Macabu, and let's see, I don't know what exactly it's known for. There's a milk brand called that, but you go back to, this is sort of an area where you have farms, indigenous areas, and some of these places people are, the farmers, well, I'll say one thing, like the farmers in Brazil are not poor. I mean, they're nowhere close to being poor. And one of the reasons why is because I think, if you look at farming in the U.S., the thing that really messed up farming in the U.S. was taking money from the government. So when the farmers started, and from the banks too, when the farmers started buying their well, basically getting a loan to produce their crops, and then after they produce it, they pay the banks back. That was a big mistake, and they should have never done that, because a lot of people lost their farms because of that. And of course, the government steps in and says, well, we'll provide this and this, and eventually the farming industry goes into social welfare, and a lot of farms die, a lot of small farms die, and then you start having these mega farms like the Roman Empire. That was one of the things that started contributing to the end of Rome, was people leaving the farms and going to the cities. And just like people shopping at Walmart who have small businesses and they put themselves out of business. So there are all these things that you have to think about to make sure that you don't destroy your civilization. Now, with that being said, the farmers in Brazil, I spent some time with this farmer. He was explaining how everything works. And a lot of people down here, when they buy houses, they don't buy them through the banks. They do a contract with somebody and just pay them directly for the house. And usually what will happen is they don't charge interest on it, but they will say, okay, if you pay cash, cash is always king, but if you pay cash, you can have it for this much. But if you pay, I don't know, 48 payments, usually people don't go over 4 years on a loan, even for houses. But you pay 48 payments, this house is yours. And that happens a lot down here. I think maybe this system actually keeps the price down a little bit. But what the farmers do is, if they don't have the money to plant their crops, they usually negotiate with the co-op or the buyers, and they actually buy the crops before they even sell them. It doesn't go through the banks, which I think anytime you can avoid the bank, it's a good idea. The banks are always going to try to get over on people, and I mean, that's just the nefarious system of banking. And of course it goes, you look at the bank system, I think a lot of it's probably related to the Rothschilds and other people who have maybe a sort of a dark control over this system, whether it's true or not. And of course, there have always been some good banks and bad banks, but just like the farming industry in the U.S., the banking industry also has diminished as well and gone to these mega banks that have taken over a lot of industry. There used to be a lot of people with banks, a lot of small banks everywhere, and of course people have gone bankrupt, and that's been a problem too. So but these mega banks are worse because we have to pay for them with our taxes, and we're losing money because of this corrupt banking system. And it's a lose-lose situation in every way. But you go back to Brazil, they have like a lot of traditional things. Now, I'm not saying that Brazil's better than the U.S. by no means. There are a lot of problems down here, and I may talk about some of those things. But of course, one of the big problems, I'll go ahead and bring that up. So one of the big problems in Brazil is centralized government. And it's a democracy. It's not a republic, it's a democracy. And so the reason why a republic is better is because in a democracy, they vote directly for the president. And of course down here they have 100% electronic machines. I think this might not happen again, but Like, there's no way to count the votes after it's done. You just have to trust the government, which no one trusts the government down here. I have no idea how they even got to that point in the first place. But everyone talks about the government's corrupt, but then the government tells them to take the vaccine, and they all take the vaccine. So it's sort of a serious psyop situation going on down here, of people knowing the government's corrupt, but at the same time, they're submissive and obedient to it. So it's kind of a dangerous cocktail of lies and deceit and obedience down here. So you have this centralized government that has pretty much absolute power down here. The only thing that keeps the government in check down here are foreign countries like the U.S. and other places that would respond if things became bad, because there are some, every people have a stake in Brazil. Europeans do, and Americans do, because a lot of food comes out of there. So they wouldn't want this corrupt government to become absolute down here. But at the same time, they do have too much control. There's basically no freedom of speech down here. So if someone criticizes the government, and a lot of people do, they criticize government, but people who have a larger voice have become silenced by the corruption. The Supreme Court has been putting people in prison down here. They had a January 6th situation, except it's January 8th. And down here in Brazil, there's like little old ladies who were protesting that have like 30-year prison sentences, while criminals who commit murder might do a couple years or no time at all. And you have these armed bandits in the city of Rio de Janeiro running around with AK-47s and all types of state-of-the-art military equipment that they don't know how to use, but they still have it, and they're being supplied by probably U.S. aid and George Soros and other people like that to destabilize the government. So with this situation in the U.S., you do want a republic. You don't want to have a direct democracy. Now, the other thing about the Electoral College, which is one of the keys to the Republic of the U.S., the Electoral College distributes power throughout the United States. If the United States did not have an Electoral College, people in middle USA would not have a voice. And only New York, California, Los Angeles, all these mega cities would become super sized. And this is why why Mexico City and Sao Paulo are two of the largest cities in the world, and they're larger than New York and Los Angeles. And the reason why is because they don't have an electoral college down here. And this is one of the reasons why the Roman Empire fell. I was mentioned that before, that the farmers left the farms to go to the city because they provided socialism in the cities. So the socialism was the free grain that came from the farms, and people went from the farms to the cities, and eventually the system collapsed because there were no farmers left, and it's just a complete, people were rioting in Rome. And the purpose of socialism is to prevent people from rioting. It's like a check valve. So they tax you to death, and they have like this social food that they hand out when things start getting bad, but they only do it when things start getting really bad. So They don't care what kind of condition you're in. But once it gets to this point where, hey, we need to do something, then they'll start bringing out the free food. So when you see those commercials like free something on that means that they're trying to bribe you into complacency with their theft of your money. And that's all it is, because they're making a tremendous amount of money, and they don't really need to appease you until you start to become maybe riotous or on the verge of rioting, a rebellion or something like that. And that's what socialism is. It has nothing to do with equal distribution. So, and that's what happens down here. It's this idea of socialism and keeping people in check with their money. So you give them back a little bit of their money when they become agitated a little bit. And so you have some guy that's ready to rebel because there's no food on his table, and he goes out to fight, and they give him a bag of rice or something like that. So it's kind of like, so people are eating, like, well, sometimes if the price of rice is not too high for them, they're eating rice and beans, like eggs. Usually like one of the presidents who she was actually, well, the only female president, but she was actually responsible for kidnapping an American ambassador in Rio. There's a good movie, I think it's called September 7th or something like that, or something in September. But look up something in September and U.S. ambassador getting. You could probably watch it on YouTube. It's a pretty good movie. It has some good actors in it, and I think it's just one of those movies that Hollywood doesn't want people to see, so they're not publishing. But it's a really good movie. It's intense, and it has an interesting ending. So this person who was responsible for kidnapping the president, who's living in luxury and reads books upside down, because they were doing an interview and asking her what book she likes to read. She was holding up a book, but it was upside down, and she thinks she knows English, but she humiliates herself when she's speaking English. So a lot of people joke about that. Of course, she knows like 2 or 3 words, and but going back to that, so you have to watch out for, we're going like through a radar area, so you can see that they post like signs to warn you about it. So you have to you have to realize that nothing is free. Everything comes with a price, and the price and the worst payment that you could pay is for your freedom. So when the banks give you money, there's a price. You have to pay it back. And if you're having difficulty paying it back, or maybe, here's one of the things that the banks do with a lot of farmers, and they actually did this with Dave Ramsey. That's how he sort of got in the situation that he's in now. He's successful, but the bank just called his loan. They said, well, we don't really we don't trust your loan. We don't think that you're going to be able to pay it back, so we're just going to call it right now, and you have to pay it back all right now, or we're going to take your property away from you. So the banks could do that at any time. You could pay 90% of your loan, and the bank say, hey, we're going to call your loan, and they just take your house away from you. We don't feel like you're going to be able to pay it back, or your farm, or anything like that. And that's what they do. Even if someone could even make full payments and never be late. Of course, like some of those situations, you could probably fight it in court, but this is too much power. And I think a lot of people just negotiate with each other because they don't want to deal with banks or the corrupt government. There are only like about 4 or 5 banks in Brazil. Like in the U.S., you have thousands of banks, but in Brazil, there's only like 4 or 5. There's like 3 cell phone companies down here. one of the cell phone companies belongs to the post office, so I can imagine that's a winner. All the cell phone companies are terrible down here. Their service is terrible. Customer service is terrible. Their quality is terrible. There's, most of this around here is going to be 3G. I don't know if there's any 5G around this area at all. Much less 4G. So it's pretty bad. Now this is I think this is Macabu that we're heading into right now. I usually just refer to it as Macabu, but it's Conceição de Macabu, and I guess it means Macabu concession or something. But it's probably just kind of the name of the region. But it's a nice little town. It's not the best place. The final destination is actually a little bit nicer because it's, like I said earlier, there's no homeless people. There's nothing, you don't see anything that's derogatory or anything that looks bad. And I mean, most of the rural areas are like this. Like if you go into this area, they do have, they have like drug dealers in this area, things like that. It's not like in Rio or anything like that, but they do have problems, like social problems here. You go to those places, I'm sure they have social problems too, but you don't see any of it there at all. And you go to some of these places in these rural areas, and I would say that the standard of living in some of these places are quite high. Now, not everywhere. There's a lot of poverty scattered throughout. Of course, I'm only like looking at people that are, maybe driving. You go to some of these places where people are actually markets and buying and selling. So you're not going to see people that are destitute in those areas. But a lot of people do. I know a lot of people that go to these mega cities because there's no work where they're from. So that, especially those who complete college, they all seem to go to the large cities. Now, a lot of people go to Macaé because of the petroleum industry, but a lot of people who graduate from universities in the petroleum industry go to Rio or Sao Paulo. I mean, not in the petroleum industry, but in other areas, they go to Rio or Sao Paulo in order to make money. Because, like for example, I would say that you could, in Sao Paulo, I think a lot of people are kind of almost on the same currency as the U.S., but people there will easily, not everybody, but a lot of people will easily pay $50 an hour for consulting or something like that. So, and I would say that in Macaé, it would be half that. People would pay $25 an hour, for some sort of consulting or something like that. Now, of course, if you're, I'm just talking about like, I don't know, average things. Of course, if you're doing a contract with somebody, it's going to be more like people will pay $100 an hour for doing something. But something to think about, like if you, $100 is like half of the minimum wage, or I'm sorry, maybe about half of a wage for a month. Maybe a couple $100 would be a monthly wage, $300, but $200 or $300 is a monthly wage down here. So there are a lot of people that are living off that amount, because one of the things you have to think about is when you have minimum wage, everybody that's below minimum wage will not be able to get a job. And so that because of minimum wage, there's a high rate of unemployment. Now, minimum wage is one of the reasons, but the other reason is taxation and also unions. So unions, taxation, and minimum wage keep a lot of people unemployed, so people will work for below minimum wage to survive. And that's one of the problems down there. So there are people probably working for $100 a month, and then you get someone who is a contractor. They're going to make $100 an hour, and so there's a really big, I guess, disparity of wealth down here between the haves and the have-nots, and then especially when you go to the top class of people down here. Now, this is something that I was surprised about, but if you look at, I don't know what it is now, but I saw something about millionaires in Sao Paulo, the largest city in Brazil, and one of the largest cities in the world. Okay, so it has about the same amount of millionaires and billionaires as New York does. So there was something, and I have no problems with somebody being successful. I think it's good for them. The problem with it is that a lot of those people a lot of them, not all of them, but some of them are successful because they have oligopolies in the market where they control everything, and they prevent other people from. So that's what I say. That I tell people when they say, "Well, I support socialism," but when they say that, socialism in reality is capitalism for the elites, and that's what it is. Socialism is capitalism for the elites. It means that the only people who will participate in capitalism are the ones who have the power, governmental power, the control of the government. And therefore, those, a lot of those if you want to get rid of mega billionaires that have like this, the 1%, if you want to get rid of the 1%, or at least, reduce it anyway, you get rid of socialism. You get rid of corporate socialism. You get rid of any kind of socialism, any governmental control. Keynesian economics, you get rid of that. You become 100% full market. You're still going to have millionaires and billionaires, but you might have actually more of them. And then the people at the bottom level will have much more money. Just pass another radar there. And so you have full free market capitalism. Now, of course, you can't just you have to have laws, and you look at the U.S. Constitution as probably one of the best systems of law, and let the states handle the details. And, going back to federalism, the good thing about federalism is that if your state sucks, you can leave it. So if you live in California, you can move to Texas. If you live in New York, you can move to Florida. If you live in Chicago, you can move to Nashville, Detroit, Nashville. A lot of people from Detroit moved to Nashville. I remember we would get, when I was living in Tennessee, we would get these Yankees that would come down there, and the Yankees would complain. They would say, "Oh, there's too many churches around here. There's too much this and that, related to Christianity," and they would complain about these things. And I was like, well, once you go back to where you come from, you have to understand why you left the area, and that's because you don't have enough churches. And the other thing, this was the craziest thing that I remember. One Yankee, he was complaining that adults don't wear costumes during Halloween, and I'm thinking, why would an adult walk around the streets in a costume? That's really weird. But I guess up north they do that, so I don't know if anybody from up north, I know not everybody up there is like that. I'm just being stereotypical for a moment here. I have a lot of good friends from up north, like I know a guy from upstate New York, great guy. He's, one time when I was about 18, I forgot where I was at, but I was I was somewhere and there was this girl from New York. You know, we weren't in Alabama. I think I was in Virginia Beach or something when I was in the Marines. And there was this girl we were talking to. She was sort of like, what's life like down in Alabama? Because that's where I was living before I went in the Marines. And the funny thing about it was that, you know, I could tell she was sort of thinking that, oh, this, you know, it was pretty rural down here. I don't know if it's to the point where, you know, where I got my first pair of shoes in the Marine Corps or anything like that, but, you know, it seemed like she had these ideas. I said, well, you know, we had an outhouse and all this stuff, and she believed every bit of it. And I said, are you serious? You believe that we have outhouses down there? And she's like, yeah. And she said, because I mean, where I lived, my grandparents had an outhouse. And I was like, oh yeah, you know, you're upstate New York, and you know, if you think about it, it's not, you know, Appalachia goes all the way up to, I think it goes all the way up to New York. But I was talking, like, I have a good friend actually down here in Brazil. He's from upstate New York, and we were talking about it. And, you know, he's from, you know, basically his family's connected to Appalachia, and you know, he went in the went in the Navy. So, you know, you can't stereotype. There's always like these stereotypes of people from the South who are, you know, they always say, oh, people from the South are racist. And, you know, some of the biggest racists that I see are usually people from the inner cities. There's sort of like this super hatred between each other. Like you go to Alabama, you never hear anybody say they hate Jews, they hate this or that. You know, there might be some division between those people, but they're not hating each other. They're just kind of separate but equal. And, you know, of course, there used to be. There isn't now. Of course, the Democrats used to have complete control of the South. And when they did, it was absolute corrupt governments and Jim Crow laws and things like that. But the Democrat Party kind of lost control over the years, and it's become, you know, more peaceful and you know, to get, you know, people are not hating each other. But once we got rid of the, you know, those Democrats who, you know, of course, they're still Democrats. They're excuse me, in the Klan and stuff like that, but they're quieter now. They're not, you know, running around burning crosses and stuff like they used to. But they probably still have a little control of the Democrat Party. They might have sort of restructured their organization, but they're still there. It's just, you know, you look at people like Biden and you know, they just don't talk about it, and they just continue their operations. And you have people like, you know, like Jesse Jackson, who is a, you know, puppet for the Klan. Spent his years trying to attack his, you know, so-called own race. So, but that's, you know, going back to that, you know, you have to realize that the going back to it, the main point is the best thing is federalism, because if your state's messed up, you can go to another state. If Tennessee, you know, one day Tennessee and Alabama will get messed up. You know, of course, after the Civil War, they were messed up, and a lot of people went up north. And I also heard stories like people were in, if you had a southern accent in a place like Flint, Michigan, or Detroit, you could not get an apartment. And that's it was a serious situation. I was surprised to hear that. You know, same thing. It had the same thing in Ireland too. If you had an accent from the northern part of Ireland and you go down to the south, they'll tell you to go back to where you came from. You're just basically you're lower than pretty much an immigrant, I guess. You know, and I guess that they sort of treat you like an immigrant. You know, Grapes of Wrath the original movie. I don't know if there's been a sequel to that or a modern makeup of that, but the original Grapes of Wrath movie, it's a good movie to watch. It's based on some factual information, but after the Dust Bowl, people headed off into California, and they were treated horribly. I mean, it was really bad treatment, exploited, and so forth. So, and the same thing, and I was surprised about that, but I was working with this guy from New Jersey one time, and he was a manager, clean cut guy. He was a district manager at this logistics company, and he was telling me, he said, "Hey, I've had a hard time. I had a hard time finding apartments in Raleigh. No, well, not Raleigh, but between Raleigh, let's see, I think it was I guess it was Raleigh, because he was in Raleigh. That's right. So in Raleigh, North Carolina, he had trouble getting an apartment because of his accent. And it's kind of like you go up to a place and they hear, he said he couldn't call him on the phone because no one had a place for him. And he said he would go to a place and they would say, "Hey, sorry, no vacancy." As soon as they heard him speaking, they might say, "Yeah, we got an apartment." But then as soon as he's talking, they say, "Well, we'll get back with you on that and let you know." So it's kind of like as soon as they hear his accent, it's sort of like a change in tune for him. So it's just reality. It happens everywhere, and it's even here in Brazil. Like in Brazil, like the guys that live in this rural area, they have what's known as a Carioca accent. So it's Carioca. Now, the Cariocas are really the city of Rio de Janeiro. I guess anybody in the state, but people in Rio have this reputation. And I mean, one of the reputations about people in Rio that they're very friendly, but it's also even people from Rio will tell you this too. You can go up and ask anybody on the street, say, "Hey, give me some directions," and they'll give you some directions. They might not help you if you have a flat tire or something, but they'll give you directions and they'll hold a conversation with you and be a little bit friendly. Even if somebody robs you in Rio, I've heard that they're friendly too. And people in Sao Paulo, they're a little bit more serious, and they're not so friendly. But this guy that lives in the rural area around, pretty close to where I'm at right now, he was telling me that he went to Sao Paulo and they started talking in the subway down there, and people in Sao Paulo started going, "Oh, look out, there's some Cariocas over here, so watch out for them. Hold your wallet, and make sure you guard your wallet and all this stuff. Zip up your backpacks," or whatever they were saying. But they were making these comments. So you have the same thing that happens in Brazil too. So people from the northeast of Brazil, they migrate to the south because the northern part of Brazil is very poor, and so you have to watch out. Now this is a place, I think it's Triunfo is the name of this area. It's a nice little area too. Beautiful, scenic, picturesque, mountainous. So very nice scenery. It's kind of nice driving through here. Of course, it's hot. Having your air conditioner on is also good. It's not like a cold mountain. Now, once you get up to the final destination, we're going to head up some mountains. It's going to be a little bit cooler. I would say it's probably mid 70s in the middle of the day, which isn't bad. Maybe the most, but I would say it's a temperature where you're not going to sweat so much, or not. I wasn't sweating at all, which I'm usually in the lower altitude, sweating around the beach and all these places. So, but it is some nice terrain. Now, when we were on that main, on that 4-lane, one of the things that I meant to talk about was, so the Campos, which is usually what they refer to, Campos Goytacazes, is famous. So it's named after indigenous people, famous, one of the main groups. And this indigenous group were known for their naval skills and resistance to Portuguese colonization. So they were good at, as far as maritime. Now, one thing, there's been some books written down here. So, it's always like Christopher Columbus was the first guy to head down here. Of course, Magellan was a Portuguese explorer, but I think he actually worked for the Spanish, and he made a lot of discoveries. But there's some good evidence that there were other people down here first. Of course, the Vikings were down here. I might mention this in one of my other videos, but the Vikings came down here, and they went to Santos, which is near Sao Paulo. Santos is the biggest port in South America. And they went from there to Bolivia, which is a good trek. Which tells me there were probably some, things were more civilized down here than what people believe. They found huge cities in the Amazon. The first person to go down the Amazon was Spanish, and he talked about these big cities that disappeared. So a lot of people believe now that a lot of these tribes just disappeared because of possibly smallpox or something that diminished the population. But they had cities that had millions of people in the cities, like huge metropolitan areas in the Amazon, and just lots of people everywhere. And I think that you probably had some cities and other things going on down here. The pyramids in Mexico were made with materials from Brazil. So there was some trading and stuff going on, ships going back and forth. There had to be, so there a lot of them might have been native. But some of these people probably came over from, the Dutch, for example. A lot of people in Rio de Janeiro, you see the complexion of people in Rio. A lot of it's because they're mixed with Dutch, Indian, African, mostly, but there are a lot of the Dutch population down here. So a lot of these cities here, like Campos, was settled by a lot of Germans. Near here is a place called Novo Friburgo, which is basically New Freiburg, settled by the Swiss. I'm not sure if it's going to be seen in this video. I'm not sure if I even recorded it, but there was, I think you passed by. You might see this in the video, but I'm going to pass by an area with a Swiss flag or Swiss symbol, and you'll see that a lot around here too. A lot of people from Switzerland settled here. There were some books written about this region back in the 1800s, and when they came to this area, it was mostly Europeans that were here, and mostly, I would say, Northern Europeans that were here, maybe some French, but it's mostly Swiss, German that had taken over this area, and it was more or less a German colony. There, I was reading a book. I can't remember her name, but there was a German woman who wrote a book. I can remember the books, but I never remember the authors of the books or the names of the books. I'm terrible with names. But I've read a lot of books. So if you ever tried to ask me, hey, how many books have you read? I could say, I don't know how many books. I would say a lot. I couldn't tell you exactly how many. And if you start asking me the names of the books, I'm not going to remember the names. So, you see some of these people on television that go, got you when you can't remember the name of a book. Well, maybe it is got you some of the times, but not always. You can't always be confident in that. Because I usually get in the book and I'm not even worried about it. Like I remember Brave New World because I had to read it, Huckleberry Finn and some other books that I had to read in school. But I've read a lot of other books that are related to, history, of course, Robin Hood, things like that when I was a kid. Read a lot of those books. But I used to not think that it was a good idea to read literature, but I've had a change because once you start reading literature, you get a good concept of the history of the time. But this woman talking about her travels through Brazil, she explains what things were like. So if you want to know Brazilian history, reading this woman's travels is pretty good. I think she was an educated woman. I'm not sure what her area was, but she put some really good details about what she saw, the conditions, the about slavery, all these other things. So it's a good book to read. If I could remember the name, I would tell you, but you could probably do a search on it and find out who it is. But she wrote the book around the 1840s, 1850s. Like in my mind, I have 1843 or 1853. It could be around there. But if you want to do some research on it, so you had this. So a lot of these tribes in here, I would say that they were civilized, and some of them rebelled. I mean, of course, the Portuguese discovered Brazil in the year 500. So the year 2000 was their 500th anniversary of Brazil. And so the discovery at that time, I don't know when they had taken over Rio, but they were at war with like two different tribes around that place for a long time, and they could not. And you read some of these old books, you could read about that, and they were not able to defeat these tribes. I think I think it happened up into the 1900s, and probably the way that they, who knows, did it appease them or who knows, because they do a lot of socialism with the Indians too, which hurts some of them. But a lot of these Indians are very conservative. There was like this push to try to prevent them from adopting Christianity, but a lot of the Indian tribes rebelled against that because they wanted, they don't want to be stuck in this, in poverty because their culture was destroyed by the Portuguese and the Spanish and smallpox and other things. And of course, you could say, this smallpox, this is a really bad thing that they did to them and stuff. But syphilis came from the Americas, and it was brought over to Europe, and syphilis killed a lot of people in Europe. So it wasn't like it was, it's bad on both sides, bad on one side thing. It's just like the issue of slavery. There were, slavery existed in every civilization in the past. The only thing that ended slavery was really capitalism. Capitalism ended slavery. Of course, it didn't put it to a complete end. It just ended it in places where capitalism exists. And we have the free market. And of course, the main contributor to the end of slavery was Christianity, because Christianity is really the only belief that I'm aware of that condemns slavery. And every other religious belief, says it's okay to enslave people as sort of, socialism, atheism. They're like, for example, atheism. There's nothing against oppressing a group of people. You look at the biggest genocide in history was done by atheists. I mean, there were far more people killed by atheists in the 20th century, 20th century, than any other religion. Now, if you go back beyond that, of course, Islam killed more people, and there were some other things, but I mean, Christianity never even got, people fighting in the name of Christianity. Of course, it wasn't Christianity that killed people. It was monarchs and people doing things in the name of Christianity because it's going against the belief of Christianity to do things like that. There's, it's just opposing the whole view. So, but atheism, there's no views on it. Atheism can be anything. And if we go back to communism, which is atheist doctrine for life, the atheists killed lots of people. I mean, atheism was the religion for communism and socialism, and a lot of people died. So this is one of the problems, this is one of the ethical situations going on with the Indian tribes. They want to be in good condition. And a lot of Christianity spread through the Indian tribes too. So a lot of Indians are Christians. And one situation that happened with these tribes, and they're referred to Indians here, they're not like native Brazilians or anything like that, because anywhere you're born, you're a native. So if you're born there, so I'm a Native American, and I don't care what you say, I'm a Native American. Now I don't have any, as far as I know, I don't have any indigenous blood. I might have a little bit with my grandmother who was French, and her descendants go back to the 1600s in France, but she lived, she grew up in Alabama, and there are a lot of, you can see some French architecture around there in some of these places near the rivers. But I don't know, if I do have any, I'm not aware of it. I don't know anything about it. So, and I do have a book that goes back with my genealogy, but they don't cover every single person, just the main key people in my genealogy. But the Brazilian Indians down here, there was a group of Indians that believed, and this is something you see in Hawaii too, a lot of broken societies, they would, any child that had any kind of deformity, they would bury the child alive. That was what they believed, to bury him alive. Well, the Christian Indians tried to prevent that from happening. And here's, just to make a mention, so I was saying India, and a lot of people say, well, India are people that live in the country of India, but the country of India does not go by that name. They have a different name. I can't think of it right now, but they actually call themselves something else. We started calling them Indian probably because they were indigenous to that area. But there are two main groups. You have the Aryan, and I think it starts with the B, but I can't remember it. And then there's the other people. So they have their own name. So if I say Indian, it doesn't mean them, and I'm not insulting them by calling someone else Indian, because they don't accept that name. So anyway, the Brazilian Indians who are Christians, they were trying to prosecute those people, and the government was protecting this, genocide of people that are saying, oh, these are, tribal values or something like that. So whenever it's bad, the government tries to protect it, because the Indians were destroyed by the Portuguese, and the Brazilian government tries to keep them in a state of poverty and in this state where they're not an organized civilization like the rest of the world, because when they're in that condition and they discover oil, gold, or something like that in the area, and this is actually what they do, they go into these areas and move everybody out. And usually the Brazilian government doesn't do it. They send somebody from Europe in there to do it. So I have a friend, she's a doctor in the Amazon in Manaus, and she's telling me, like, when she goes back to her hometown where she's originally from, it's full of people from other countries, and all the trees are cut down and everything is destroyed. They moved all the Indian tribes out, and that's what, so that's why you don't want too much government, and that's why you want federalism, because if Brazil was federalist, then those people can manage their own territory, and they wouldn't be, Christians wouldn't be exploited, because Christianity is dangerous to government. If the Indians become like full-blown Christian, they're not going to be able to be controlled by the government as if they were, just living in grass huts, as they used to. And I don't know if many of them actually do live in that condition, because there were these tourists that were going down there, and their job was to expose these Indians for being corrupt. But because what they would do, they went to the village when the tourists, during the time that they weren't doing tourism, and they snuck into the village, there was nobody there. So they went past the village, up through the forest a little bit, and there was their little town that they lived in. And these guys like, oh, we got them now. But I think it's kind of ridiculous, because the idea that they're maintaining this village like it used to be, even though they're not living there, it's just maintained, and they go in there and they do theatrics of what tribal life was like. It's like doing a reenaction, Civil War reenaction. You're not like trying to fool anybody. You're just doing that, and people want to see that. Why would you expect them to live in squalor in order to present what life used to be like? They have the right to live in a house, to have running water, to have refrigerators and food and things like that. It's some of these people are just, they're small-minded, and they think, oh, we're going to show these guys, and people fall for it too. There's nothing wrong with what they're doing. I think it's good that they are civilized, and good that they're preserving their history as well. How they were living. People, anthropologists would like to see that, and it's, both ways are good. So, nothing wrong with that. Now, Campos in the past, Goytacazes had one of the largest populations, and of course, it had a lot of slavery back then too. But once the abolition of slavery, which happened in 1880s, after the United States, and of course, when it continued down here, and the only reason why it discontinued was because of people were boycotting them and not going to do business with them. The capitalists, who were mostly Europeans, mostly British, were not going to do business with slave countries. And that's one of the reasons why Africa has been in poverty for such a long time. And you have a place like Brazil, they abolished it, and they're not in as bad condition as Africa is, but they're also not in good condition, because they do have socialism and communism down here, which is the next worst thing to slavery, and that's kept them in a state of poverty as well, because it creates a system where people are punished for working and others get paid for it. And so while you have this one class of people that's living off the taxes, there's like a lot of people that are not producing who could produce, and it just leads to severe problems in the culture. And one thing to mention with that is this whole thing about CO2 emissions. So CO2 emissions are not bad, because CO2 helps trees grow, plants grow, because they consume CO2 and produce oxygen. But the big problem is not CO2, because once you start creating all these laws, which the laws are about control, they're not about making the environment better. So you have these CO2 laws and all these global warming laws and all these laws. Well, it just makes things worse. The example that I can give is, if you go to a place where you have capitalism and people are not poor, the majority of people are wealthy, you're not going to see polluted rivers. People are going to do what it takes to clean up their neighborhoods, their rivers. They're going to use water sewage treatment plants and things like that. So you go down here to Brazil where they have these excessive environmental laws, and I mean I'm talking about extreme. It creates poverty down here. So what does a poor person do? Well, when they have sewage, they're going to dump it directly into the river because they're so poor. Not much can happen. You know what can the government do to them? You know, make them pay a fine. They're not going to be able to pay the fine because they don't have any money. So, you know, they start locking people up. They're going to lock up half the population. So if you go somewhere like Rio de Janeiro, where they had the Olympics, people got sick because water was so polluted. You go to France. You know, France supposedly they're the main place with the climate accord or whatever, and people got sick from the river because the river's polluted because the river could be clean, but because people are in poverty, they're not able to make their civilization better. So this is really the point to, if you want to make things better, then you lighten up on the laws, make the economy good, and people are going to take care of their neighborhoods. They're going to take care of their house. They're going to take care of their property. The government does nothing but destroy everything, and you know that's what it's about. Now, one of the things you see around here a lot is sugarcane. So sugarcane, and with that being said, you can see a lot of places that sell sugarcane juice, and you go there, and I have a video in here if you want to see how it's done. It seems like I posted a video of someone making sugarcane juice, and it got more views than any other video. I don't know why. It was just a guy like squeezing the stem through some machine, and out comes the sugarcane juice. Now, one thing about this is it has a little bit of a flavor like grass, which in reality it looks like Johnson grass. It looks like a big blade of grass. And it was probably, you know, the Indians genetically modified a lot of things, like corn comes from South America or Central America, and it's basically genetically modified grass. They just kept selective breeding it until the head of it got big enough to be a corn cob. And you go to potatoes are genetically modified. Bananas are genetically modified, but I'm not talking about with splicing or anything like that. It's just natural selection and not anything unnatural. So there are some unnatural bananas, but around here you see a lot of fresh bananas, and they definitely have a different flavor than the store-bought bananas. They're pretty good. I just ate one couple hours ago, and they're good. They're different, but you know they did selective breeding on bananas. And because if you look at the original banana, they're full of seeds, and it's not really that edible. And they just kept modifying it until there were no seeds in there. The pineapple comes from around here. I don't know if they had to do anything to make it like it is, but a lot of the fruits and a lot of things were modified till they got a certain way. There's a lot of oranges, different types of oranges down here. There are these green oranges, a lot of different types of lemons down here too. And a lot of it is because they're wild. They grow in the wild, maybe kind of like crab apples, something like that. Of course, in the United States, there used to be like 15,000 different types of apples all over, and some of them were better than others. And what they have to do now in order to continue the process of maintaining the same apples is they have to splice a branch into an apple tree, because if you plant a seed, the apple's going to be different from the original tree. And I mean, that's just one of the facts that things change quickly when it comes to apples. But down here, I think it's sort of the same thing with lemons. Now, limes seem to be the same, but when you buy a lime, they don't have. So limes down here, like lemons in the U.S., you get a lot of limes down here, and lemons are usually imported. But the limes don't have seeds in them. Lemons do. So maybe there's some sort of thing going on with that as well. Maybe they're splicing, because it's possible that you might have the same effect if you plant lime seeds or lemon seeds or whatever, that it might slightly change it as things go by. Which, makes sense. Things have to adapt to the environment, so maybe each year it's a little bit different. It's like coffee. Every year the coffee's a little bit different. And they have some really good coffee in some of these areas too, especially when you get up into the mountains. That's one of the things that I usually buy when I'm in these areas. So you can see we're kind of going up the mountain, and it's a good long trip going up through here, but it's well worth it. And of course it's a great view, but it is really nice. Sort of almost envy some of the people that live in some of these areas, especially you see some of them with some really good view. Now, every once in a while you might see a building on the edge of the mountain, which is fine. It's a great view, but sometimes there are mudslides here too. So hopefully they did their research really good to make sure they're not going to go sliding down one day. But like if you go here, there are lots of little places here and there that you could stay at, and they're not really that expensive. Maybe I don't know, $50 a day, maybe $100 a day to stay in these places. I have to. I was looking into that. I have to find out now. I haven't been in any of the places in these rural areas, but some of them seem pretty nice. A lot of them are just some almost like a mom and pop type business. So you don't really know what to expect, but it seems like there's some pretty good quality. One thing that you can definitely, when you go to somebody's business, there, especially when you go to some of these small businesses in rural areas, you're usually going to get some pretty good customer service. You might not get what you're expecting, like from the U.S. or something, because of course, if you go to a major business in the U.S., they train their employees, and they have like this standardized method of treating the customer. So it's sort of like a generic way of smiling and thanking people while they're probably thinking, I wish this idiot would hurry up. But so sometimes you might go to a place down here and people seem a little bit indifferent. It could be because they're just not used to seeing an American or something. So can't really, you definitely shouldn't go down here with this attitude like customer first or anything like that, which sometimes you will get excellent, a lot of times, I think most of the time you will get excellent customer service. If you don't, it's just because it's just someone that hasn't been, indoctrinated to be a customer service guru, someone that just, is being their self and that's it. So you just kind of go, you have to have a little bit of an open mind when you're dealing with some of those people. So, so right now we're heading into this Santa Maria Madalena, and it's pretty much just over the mountain. Now there's going to be a little bit of a trek left to go over here, but this place is, like I said, it's a nice little place in the middle of nowhere. I think because it's kind of distance from everywhere, you don't get like hobos or things like that. So that's kind of a nice thing. It seems like it's really safe. The people are friendly, and they also have tourism down here too. So people are going here for tourism, and and you can go to some of these places, and like each place, a lot of these places around here have this. Everywhere I've been to has something like this, but they have a lot of waterfalls. I just went here to sort of do a recon to get an idea. It's not far from where I live, so as you can see. But I went down here to get a recon, find out what's good and what's not, and maybe get some brochures and have an idea of what I'm going to do the next time. And a lot of these places around here, they have you can go here and set up a trip. Tourist company is not expensive at all, and they will take you around the place. They have a van. They can take you around to the waterfalls and historic sites, and it's you can see the main things that you would want to see. And I mean, I could go around on my own, but I don't know it enough. But I'm gonna have to probably do that with one of these tourist companies, just kind of find out where everything's at, and then next time I'll just kind of go on my own. But they also have like 4-wheel drives, so they could take you to some of the places where you cannot get to with a regular vehicle. And the last, I don't know, one of the things I saw, they sort of had like it was like I think it was a Toyota, like a big Toyota pickup truck, and there was a flatbed on the back with roll bars and maybe about 6 to 8 seats, something like that. It's been a while since I've seen this, but 4-wheel drive that'll head up into the mountains and take people to some of these good areas. Some of the areas you can go to, waterfalls and swimming holes, and then places to go hiking up mountains, have an incredible view. So lots of things that you could do in these rural areas. If you go to Brazil, I mean, Rio's nice, but if you've been to Rio, it's sort of a stressful situation too. If you want to, if that's not your cup of tea, and you like something more like this is probably a good thing to do too. Safer, and people are usually, I don't know, friendlier. Of course, like I said, you never know what you're going to do. I've never had anybody that's rude. They're just either friendly or indifferent. Like when I was there was one guy that I was in one place, and there's, you'll meet somebody that will talk your ears off, and but other than that, you're going to meet like friendly people and indifferent people. You might see people that just, they have their business. They're just not fake, And one thing to think about too, you also have that Germanic population here, so that old Germanic culture is going to be more of a serious culture, and they might even be more serious than the Germans are today, because they're when you get to these places where people, now we're entering the town, so that a lot of these Germanic towns have an entrance like that, and you kind of see that throughout the Germanic areas in Brazil. So some places you'll go, there'll be rest stops, and the bathrooms will say Herr and Frau on it, and you can see that. And you can go to some places and they still speak German. I was in southern Brazil one time, and this was after I'd been living in Germany, and I came to Brazil. So I was able to hold a conversation in German. She started speaking to me in German, because I guess I look German as well. So she's talking to me in German, and we're going back and forth. And I said, well, which part of Germany are you from? And she said, I'm not from Germany, I'm from Brazil. And I was like, okay, well, your German's perfect. Well, she said she grew up speaking German, and that's the way a lot of this happens. Now, of course, in the U.S., you don't have a lot of people who speak German, and that's because of World War II, World War I, I think. Maybe World War II put sort of put a capstone on it. But we look at history of the United States. There was a guy who had a German accent, but I think he was a little bit, had some mental issues, and he ended up being strung up. And the bad thing about it was that the media did not publish it in a derogatory way. So it was almost like it was tolerable to kill a German. I guess he wasn't some crack addict who was part of this so-called marginalized group of people who are claimed to be oppressed. But maybe if he would have been that, it would have been a different situation. But because he was German, it was no problem. So they went ahead and strung him up, lynched him, strung him up on a tree. And this probably put the fear in most Germanic people, and they stopped speaking German. And you find very few places in the U.S. that speak German. Well, that didn't happen here. So, while there was some, tactics, 30,000 Americans came down to Brazil after the Civil War, and most of them don't speak English anymore, but there was a lot of pressure from the Portuguese to prevent them from practicing Protestantism and some of their other values. They were not allowed to use tombstones and things like that because I think it goes against the Catholic belief who was controlling the area at the time. And I mean, Catholics kind of still control it down here, but not. It's mostly the communists that have a lot of the control down here. And Protestantism has grown so much down here. It's probably maybe evangelicalism is probably about the same population as Catholicism down here. So it sort of is kind of growing. And you see a lot of Beetles down here. Now the Volkswagen Beetle, it's not imported from Germany. It's not from Volkswagen either. So I forgot what year it was, but the Brazilian government got like the rights to produce what they call the Fusca down here. And this is the exact model of the Beetle, but you still see a lot of them driving around here. 10 years ago, you saw a whole lot of them. You still see them going around. Some of them have been converted into dune buggies, but they're pretty good running vehicles. They're not the best, but it's amazing, pretty good technology. Something simple, inexpensive, and that was the main purpose of it, making something inexpensive. Which was the whole reason why the Germans did that too. And so you see a lot of those, and I don't know, you see some Volkswagen vans and things like that down here too as well. Those are two of the main things. They run pretty good. People have been using them a lot. I know a guy that he lives up in this mountain area, and it's difficult to get there, and he goes up it in a Volkswagen van. He drives this old Volkswagen van, and he's able to get through some of these really difficult areas. So I think it has the same concept as the Beetle, just a little bit bigger. So that's kind of it. I'm kind of running out of things to talk about, and what I'm probably going to do is, as you can see, this is the town here, the actual town. I'm going to post, so if you want to see some other videos of walking around through this town, I'm going to have those as well. But I will post those after this video. I'm not going to make it. This video is just for the trip, and I'm talking about this video, which happened already, but I had to do do this in order to improve the quality of it instead of just talking while I'm driving down the road, which I think that would not be so well because I'm focusing on my driving. So I want to talk about these facts and other things. So this is one of the smaller gas stations. They don't have restaurants, but the gas stations with the restaurants are usually like in the bigger cities or in the on the interstate or the highways. They don't have interstates down here. They just have highways. But the gas stations are not like the ones in the U.S. They usually have a lot of businesses associated with them, but they're not like these convenience store systems that we have in the U.S. I kind of prefer what they have down here compared to the gas station in the U.S., mostly because of the food. And like at the end of this trip, I'm going to go to a restaurant that I go there once in a while, and they have food cooked over a fire, and it's pretty good. Pretty good cooking. And now, once this video starts, I don't know if they're still in there, but you might be able to see like two parrots. There were some parrots up in the up on the telephone pole. You know, I don't see that many parrots around here, but you know, of course, this is up in the mountains, and it's the first time that I've seen like live parrots in Brazil. So now this is starting going back, and I'm not sure if you could see them. They might have already flown away, but there were these two parrots up in the power lines, like next to the telephone pole. They're like inside the wires. They're almost like, you know, it seems like they're almost like pigeons around here. They're wall parrots, and so going back, you know, took a little bit of a different route going back, but it's still the same thing. So if you want to continue watching and enjoy the view. But one thing about this area, so you know, it's subtropical. It's not tropical here, so you don't have piranhas. So if you go swimming in the water, you're not going to have to worry about piranhas or anything like that. They don't have anacondas here. Now they do have some smaller versions that are related to that. You know, more like boa constrictors and things like that. And they do have some poisonous snakes. You have to be careful, but I don't know anybody that's been bitten by a poisonous snake. You don't really see, like I had a big boa constrictor in my house one day, and I forgot what they called that snake, but it was a pretty big snake. It was, I was trying to get it out of there, and I'll tell you what, that thing was strong because it grabbed hold of the broom that I was trying to grab it with, and it was giving me a good fight. And I saw a black snake. It's probably like a king snake one time when I was living on this farm or next to a farm. But usually you're not going to see anything there. Like if you go into the forest, there are a lot of things that can kill you in there, so you have to be careful. But if you're on the trails and stuff like that, it's not a severe problem. But you do have, there's like a spider down here, and it's a poisonous spider, and it's pretty aggressive. But it'll sort of raise its front legs up and sort of get like it's trying to fight you or something, but you just have to watch out for it and, you know, don't mess with it. But I haven't seen one, you know, I haven't seen anything like that, and I don't know, you know, it's probably, it may not even be as poisonous as a black widow. Of course, black widows are probably one of the worst. I remember one time I picked up a rock in I forgot where this was. It might have been in, you know, I mean, somewhere in the U.S. It might have been Atlanta, or it could have been some Virginia Beach or who knows where. But I remember picking up this rock, and there were like thousands, if not more, like black widows there. I think I was in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I mean, it's just full of them. That was sort of a freaky looking thing to see. But I don't know, it's not that bad down here. They're not like, you might, you do have to worry about things just like you would in the U.S. Like they do have jaguars down here, and jaguars are very aggressive. But it's just like dealing with the cougar. You just don't turn your back on it. You have to face it, because once you turn your back on it, it's going to jump you, because that's what sort of triggers instinct, especially if you're running away. But if you're facing it, then it's less likely to attack you in the situation. But the best way to handle that situation is always have a gun with you. Always pack. So drive around through this little area a little bit before we head out, and I think that's about everything that I'm going to talk about today. But enjoy the rest of the video, and if you have questions about anything about this area down here, just send me a message, and I'll respond. I don't get a lot of messages on here anyway, so if I might be slow responding, maybe or maybe not, but if I am, if I see it, I will respond. As soon as I see it, I'll respond. So feel free to. And again, thanks for watching, and enjoy the rest of the trip. I think going back it'll be a little sunnier, so that will have a different look to it, and you'll see the other direction. Of course, at the beginning we're going to go through an area that good distance where we did not travel before, and then we'll get back on the main road going back. So again, enjoy. And if you like it, leave a comment. And this is from rumble.com/c/LostInBrazil. If you have any questions, you can send me an email at mark@el4e.com. That's mark@el4e.com. And my telephone number is 615-420-2040. And that's 615-420-2040. Now, I've published my number a lot of times. I don't get a lot of calls, so I'm not really worried about putting it out like that. But feel free to call me if you have something serious to talk about. If you need some computer programming classes, if you need to get up on that, I teach computer programming, and sometimes I do services if you need something set up for your database, especially in the area of logistics and petroleum distribution. Feel free to give me a call, and I can help you out. I can help you get a good process going to set up your systems. And of course, please like this video and subscribe for more videos. I'll have more videos coming in the future. That way you can see more about Brazil if you're one of the people interested in this. And feel free to ask questions. Like if there's something that you want to see, like, hey, I want to see this, or I want to know more about this. Can you do a video about this? If I can do it, I will try, because my purpose here is to make something. Of course, I would not post this here if I didn't want other people to watch this. So I have a purpose for this, and it's not just for me. If it was for me, then I would just watch the video. But I'm wanting to have something that other people can watch. Who knows how long this is going to be available? Probably after I'm here. Maybe my grandson will have something to watch, and who knows, great grandson, other people. But again, thanks a lot. Take care, God bless. And just, one thing to remember is that, if things are not going great for you, seek God. God can help you out. And I also have some videos on rumble.com/c/languages, and I talk about the Bible and some other things. So if you're interested in that, go that's rumble.com/c/languages. And if you want to watch some classes on computers, if you want to learn some, maybe something related to Microsoft Access or Excel, I have some videos in rumble.com/c/Richardson, RICHESON. So, and one other thing. So if you want to listen to old time radio programs, if you go to rumble.com/c/GAR, GAR for Golden Age Radio, I have lots of oldies. Twilight Zone, The Lone Ranger. These are some old radio programs that were out there. 0 Hours playing right now, and that's from Rod Sterling. Lots of good oldies. Father Knows Best, Ozzy and Harriet. Everything, let's see, My Favorite Husband with Lucille Ball. So, that she did some pretty good stuff before she got super famous. I think she was a little bit famous at that time too. So there's a lot of different videos that are related to police. You have Dragnet. So Dragnet had a radio program. It was popular. And the good thing, I started getting into radio because of audiobooks. So I would listen to audiobooks when I was driving, didn't have time to read. So I was working too much. So I'd listen to audiobooks while I'm working and other things. And sometimes I'd have insomnia. I was in the Gulf War, and I'd have insomnia. So I'd listen to audiobooks to fall asleep, especially the Bible. I listen to that a lot. But I would work and listen to the radio a lot too. Well, if you listen to some of these radio programs, it's kind of the same thing over and over again. Some of these talk radio programs, and they're okay, but some of them are just commercials for whatever it might be. And it's just mostly commercials that you're listening to. Well, if you listen to the old radio programs, this is back before television. Before everyone had a television. Some people did at that time, but mostly it was these. And some of the radio programs was before television, but some of these shows were playing on radio and television. So some of them were written for radio, some of them were made for television. So it's a little bit different. Now, if I listen to television, I'm going to miss a lot of things because there's no narrator to tell me what's going on. If you listen to the Twilight Zone, or if you listen to Dragnet, they're going to either have a narrator or they're going to provide some extra details so that you can visualize what's going on. I also have things in there from Orson Welles. He had a radio show as well, which was really good. I have the original broadcast of War of the Worlds, which he got in a lot of trouble. Well, he didn't get in a lot of trouble for, but he was scrutinized for it because he created a panic, and that's a famous radio broadcast. And that was really one of the ways. That was sort of the thing the catalyst that got me into doing these radio programs on there, was because I listened to that Orson Welles program. I thought, hey, that's pretty good, and I started kind of digging through some other things, and I found a lot of good information out there. And that was one of the first ones that I published, was that Orson Welles one, and it got a lot of comments, a lot of views, and but he has some pretty good shows, Treasure Island, some of these other other programs. Dracula seems to be really popular, and so they take a book and they convert it over there. But the reason why I mentioned Orson Welles, because he might be the first person that referred to radio. Is something of the mind, but it's like theater of the mind. Theater of the mind, because if you watch television, it does everything for you and you think, but if you listen to radio, your mind has to do a lot of creativity, so it's better for your mind to listen to radio than it is to watch TV. And the good thing about radio is that you can listen to it I listen to radio a lot now, and I fall asleep quickly when I'm listening to it. Maybe it might not be the same for everyone, but that's one of the benefits for me. But I was working in a factory for a while, and I would listen. If I would have known about these radio programs, I would have listened to it then. I listened to a lot of different things, maybe audiobooks, and radio when I was working in a warehouse. But this is good. So that's one of the reasons why I started doing like 8-hour programs, because a lot of people would say, "Hey, I was listening. This is good." That wasn't my intention initially. I kind of had that idea of working there, but I didn't know that a lot of people were going to like that. But I would play like an 8-hour long stream. Now I have it going 24 hours, but I have like an 8-hour program, and I get a lot of people saying, "Yeah, I listen to this while I was working," or it's just perfect sleep. It'd be 8 or 9 hours, and that was perfect for me to get through my shift, things like that. So that's the benefit of listening to radio, because you can listen while you work, and you can, if you're doing something monotonous, there's something that you can listen to. So there's a lot of times I have it going, maybe if I have to have some deep thought, I might shut it off, but if I have to really concentrate, but it's good in certain situations while you're driving. Like when I used to drive an hour a day, or an hour, 2 hours a day, an hour to work and an hour back, I would listen to audiobooks. I wouldn't really listen to late radio, because to me it's just a kind of silliness over and over again, and it wasn't, you hear some of these jokes, they kind of do them over and over again, and it gets kind of old, at least with radio in Nashville was good. Talk shows, they're pretty good, but to me it's just repetitive, and listening to repetitive and listening to audiobooks is good, because I'm learning something, I'm picking up something that I normally wouldn't do, so I'd have that going on that, or learn a language or something like that. So you can either have an audiobook, and then I started realizing, well, hey, if I'm going to listen to an audiobook, it's good, because if I want to get the exact story, and it's interesting, but if I don't want to spend all that time listening to something, you can also go back to the theater of the mind, where you have a radio program that's put together in a way that you can listen to it theatrically, and you have different people talking instead of someone reading the entire story. You have actors, and very good actors, because you go back into radio, some of the actors that were involved in this were the best. You have Jack Webb, Lucille Ball. She was extremely talented. She had a lot of problems, but she was very talented. Orson Welles, of course, was very talented. And all the top actors had done. If you listen to these radio programs, all the best were involved in radio. Every top actor, Jimmy Stewart, he did a lot of radio programs. There's one Western with Jimmy Stewart in it, the 6-shooter. That's a pretty good one. You also have, what's that one that was really popular? There's another Western on there, and I can't think of the name right now, but not Bonanza, but it was the other one that was really, and I can't think of it right now. If I think about it in a minute, I'll let you know. But if you listen to the radio programs, you'll hear that. But it was one of the top television shows, and it was also one of the top radio programs. And it has some good actors in it. Sheriff Matt Dillon or whatever. I can't think of the name of the program, but for some reason I remember the name of the sheriff in there. Kitty, the one with those people in it. Okay, so there we are leaving the town, heading through that city entrance. So it doesn't stop there. Like, you get some of these people like James Cagney. The only person that I don't recall ever being in the radio program was John Wayne. I haven't really heard anything with him on it. But any of these top actors that you could think of, and I'm not big on remembering their names. They were on there. Groucho Marx. I have a lot of stuff with Groucho Marx on there, especially his Bet Your Life radio program, and it's funny. It's funny to listen to it. Groucho Marx, this guy was, Red Skeleton. He has a lot of stuff. Both these guys were super talented. Red Skeleton, he was not just a good comedian. He was good at other things too. I mean, he was a good actor. He was a good singer, dancer, and everything. I mean, you'd be surprised. He just doesn't. You kind of think of him as just a comedian. Same thing with Groucho Marx. He was talented. Of course, comedy was his biggest thing that set him apart. But he could dance, he could sing, he did a lot of these things, and he could do it in a funny way and entertain people. So you have some of the best people that made. This is the golden age of Hollywood, and Hollywood was good at one time, believe it or not. Those of you that watch this dribble that they produce now. But there was a time when they did some superb movies and high quality, very good acting that you could listen to and get lost in. And nowadays, it's I don't know. I've been to a theater maybe 3 times in the last 30 years, maybe. And usually when I'm in the theater, I'm looking at my watch and I can't wait to leave because the movies suck so much. It's not good. I think the last time I enjoyed the movie was actually Rocky. When that Rocky 2, Rocky 3, but the first Rocky was, I think, the best. And usually the first one's the best anyway. They make the sequels just to grab some nostalgic people or those who are kind of like groupies or just followers. So you can see going back, there's a little bit more sunshine. You can see a little bit more blue sky maybe. And this is heading kind of up and down the mountain, but it's mostly going to be downhill after this. Or I guess we've already gone down the hill. But that's pretty much it. So if you have any questions, let me know, and I'll be glad to get back with you on that. Oh, I was going to so there's one place that we'll go through. So there's Monte Sinai. It's a great place around this area to have a view. To have a view and go through there. Trying to think of some other things that I missed. So there's a town that's called Triunfo you'll see Triunfo or Triunfo, and that place was very successful at one time with the farm agriculture industry, and they exported to Campos de Goytacazes. So there are some ports around that area, but it used to be the main port, but it sort of became diminished to Santos and Sao Paulo, and a lot of people would go there instead. But I think they're trying to revive those things around here. They're working on this huge natural gas. Well, it's sort of like they're talking about it right now, but they're talking about doing a huge natural gas facility in Macaé, which build a tremendous port, because they'll need it, especially to import the products and other things. But they'll have like a lot of natural gas being produced here. So that's it. Thanks for watching, and have a good day, night, or whatever it is, whatever time it is, and take care. And again, thanks a lot. Take care and goodbye.
wheels are gone. Fella stopped me on the street last night, said everything's alright. Roller coaster, make it through the day upright. It seems your meal ticket is gone, but life goes on. I could never imagine something better. Yeah, right. Now you're cooking on high heat in the middle of the street. Roller coaster, take me to a better time. Let's go. All sing your high line with the roller coaster of life. Yeah. It's time to all choose your timeline on the roller coaster of life. Oh, you seem to easily forget how to place your bet. When everyday life gets you down, you gotta steal the crown. Got to own it. Don't bitch and moan about it, please. God forbid you scrape your knees, and it's nothing to sneeze at. Oh, I've told you over and over again. You gotta get both hands around it and make your own plans. Roller coaster, it's taking over. It's about time. Oh, sing your high line on the roller coaster of life. We've got to all choose your timeline with the roller coaster of life.
Thank you for joining me on this Brazilian adventure. If you enjoyed exploring Brazil with me, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe to Lost in Brazil for more exciting content and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Share your thoughts and questions or suggestions in the comments below. I love hearing from you. And until next time, obrigado and safe travels.